invisible slashing bullet. And in an interesting development, he's gone straight to lurkers, and I'm surprised he did that given the way that Stork's attack developed. I would have expected he'd want to get more Hydralisks on the ground rather than quick lurkers to defend against Corsairs. Though his Scourge have been really effective doing that defensive job for him so far, so maybe he feels he can get away with lurkers instead of Hydralisks here. Very interesting. So starting to see some High Templar out now. I guess that we're not going to be seeing any Dark Templar harass for a little while longer. The robotics facility is going up. The core is spinning, and I don't know if Type B is making any Corsairs. Sorry, if Stork is making any more Corsairs. The Forge is also spinning, so Weapons 1 is upgrading for ground, and I don't know if it's Dragoon range or Air Weapons 1 upgrading at the core. Not seeing any Corsairs around at the moment. I would guess it would be Dragoon range. And a tech switch for Type B, he's shifted to Mutalisks, which is interesting, and he's adding a second evolution chamber, so Muta-Lurker. This is a bizarre combination. Not something we usually see in this build. Though I guess that since Stork isn't producing Corsairs anymore, the Mutalisks might be able to get in and do some damage, and there they go into the main. There are a couple of cannons to defend the mineral line, and a lot of Dragoons moving out for Stork, or if he was moving back now for Stork to deal with these Mutalisks. That's a very Dragoon-heavy army for Stork all of a sudden, but the Mutalisks are not going to be effective given the cannons and the large numbers of Dragoons getting out. Seems like there's just been a lot of unit countering going on between the two players. So the Lurkers being countered by the Dragoons, and the Mutalisk tech switch from Type B. Kind of a nice idea in the early game, but it doesn't look like that's going to be doing all that much either. So I think we've reached a little bit of an impasse here with the game's still pretty even, but in terms of army right now, I would say Stork's at a bit of an advantage just in terms of his unit composition being pretty good to deal with this. Though Type B is amassing a good number of Zerglings, which will help for the Dragoon-heavy army that is amassing for Stork. It's not all that often that I've seen this many Dragoons in the early mid-game against a Zerg player, so that's kind of interesting. Storm catching a couple of Mutalisks on the run. Yeah, that's a lot of Zerglings there, about 3 dozen of them, so I'm curious as to what Type B is planning to go and do with those. Meantime, he's getting a large defensive lurker line set up, and he's spotted Stork trying to expand and shut that down. It looks like Type B has also taken a 4th base at the top left, or... No, okay, that was some minimap confusion. That was where he took out Stork's base, and there's a big line of Zerglings on the move. So, still 2 bases to 3 for a pretty even economic situation. Now Type B, botching his micro up a little bit there, losing a bunch of Mutalisk thanks to Storm and Dragoons, but sniping off 2 High Templar, and that's definitely going to help with sort of later game engagements and dealing with Stork's army in the future. Less Storms or 1 less Archon later can make a pretty conceivable difference. So we've got Zealots, Dragoons, and Templar, so all of the gateway units except DT's out on the field right now. Observers are out as well, and it's still a tier 2 tech army for Type B. I haven't seen anything to suggest a switch to Hive tech yet, and it's going to be interesting to see how Type B is going to deal with the higher levels of tech that Stork seems to have. Okay, he's opted to go Defilers, and he has gotten up his Queen's Nest just while the Observer was looking elsewhere on the map. That's a huge lot of lings. That's at least 5 dozen lings out for Type B in various spots around the map. And here's a Mutiling attack at the natural of Stork. This is really aggressive play by Type B. He's going to take out a couple of cannons, and he's catching the Dragoons as well as the reinforcements with all of these Zerglings, but some really nice storms from Stork are helping him to hold his defense here. That's the problem with these low-tier, these low-tech units from the Zerg. They're really great in the early game, but Psionic Storm just levels them. There are a couple of Zerglings now with Adrenals upgraded in the natural, and they're going to take out a couple of probes, but aside from eliminating those cannons, they haven't done terribly huge amounts of damage yet. Still, I would say that Type B came out a little bit ahead on that attack, though the game is still very much even. It looks like Stork has either a large number of units or a new expansion going up at the top right. That's a massive units, so no expansion there. So this is still, for about 15 minutes into the game, no 4th base for Type B, no 3rd for Stork yet, so this is a little bit low economy as Zerg versus Protoss mid-games go. Oftentimes, someone will have expanded again. Okay, there's Type B having taken his 4th in that bottom right corner, and I think his ability to hold that is really going to determine the course of the game, at least the way this has been going right now. His ability to hold that and keep Stork at 2 is going to be very influential. If he can keep Stork on 2 bases while getting up a 4th, then he'll be at a big advantage in the late game. Crackling attack over at the 3rd that Stork is set up, so there was an expansion going up behind that massive unit, and the DT there is going to hold the defense because there's no Overlord on hand to defend it, but Type B can send massive units over there pretty quickly, I think, and the Defilers are out now too, so Type B's got what he needs to start doing Dark Swarm crackling raids to go Nexus sniping or what have you. The Forge is spinning again, and I've missed out on the upgrades there. The Corsairs are +1, the Overlords are +1 Flyer Carapace, I saw, but the ground units I missed the upgrades on, so I'm going to be keeping an eye out for that. It's +2 attack, so it's probably +1 armor researching, though Stork could also go for a heavy attrition route and research +3 attack. Meanwhile, for Type B, as soon as I click on a unit of his, I'll get an upgrade count there. Starting to see some Corsairs being produced again as well, so Scourge now out in response. Ultralisk Cavern's on the way, so it's looking like 4 base, 4 gas Ultralisks for Type B here. And Archons are now out for Stork, which are going to deal with the Zerglings making that attack, but Type B is using Dark Swarm and the terrain in the form of those ridges to position himself well for these battles. And there's a load of Plague on the Zealots and Dragoons. That is going to hurt. Protoss units are really durable, have lots of hit points, and Plague does, of course, negate that a lot. It makes their units comparatively weaker. But some DTs are into the main of Type B, and they're going to snipe down the spawning pool. And since Type B has been going for a Zergling-heavy attack force, possibly in order to save resources for the Ultralisks he's going for in this late game, that is definitely going to slow things down for him. On the other hand, though, a switch to a different ground unit might not be such a bad idea. Some Hydralisks to support the Zerglings already would be a thought, but Ultralisks are hitting the field already, and they are 2-3 from the look of it. So +2 attack, +1 armor researched for. No, +2 attack, +3 carapace for type B, if I'm not mistaken here. Storm drop catches a drone. That's not all that much at all. A lot of overlords massing up.